Hey everyone, welcome back. We're about to take a deep dive into a topic that's practically overflowing with dollar signs. EdTech funding. We see technology worming its way into every corner of the classroom, right? But the amount of money flooding this sector, it's kind of crazy. We're talking billions. Huge, huge investment. So the big question we're wrestling with today is, will this cash actually help underfunded schools, or is this going to create a whole new set of problems? To help us pick apart this very expensive puzzle, we're going to be digging into this piece from MBNChannel.com. It's called Educational Technology, a boon for underfunded areas. Catchy, right?
It is interesting to see this surge in funding right now. It's almost like the pandemic. It was such a stark example of the digital divide and just, kids struggling to learn because they don't even have a laptop, never mind anything else. So it really, I think it really captured people's attention. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It definitely pulled back the curtain on those disparities. But the MBN channel piece, it doesn't just focus on the problems, it digs into solutions. One of the things that they highlight is the rise of these adaptive learning platforms, which basically, it's like having a personal tutor powered by AI. It assesses a student's needs, creates lessons that are custom tailored. And just imagine, think about the impact that this could have in underfunded schools, especially where teachers are stretched so thin. It's like giving them a helping hand, right? 24/7. And it's not just about software. They talk about this, the elephant in the room, internet access, the U.S. Infrastructure Act. Get this, $65 billion that's going into expanding broadband. So much money. And it makes sense because what good is EdTech if kids can't even get online?
Right, and this is a global trend we're seeing, not just limited to the U.S. They point to India's PM EVA program. You've got the African Union. They have their digital education strategy. So there's a lot of resources being poured into this idea of using EdTech to reach these underserved communities.
What I think is so interesting is the article, it really paints this picture of like a rural community. Maybe they're miles from the nearest library. And with EdTech, these students can access, the same cutting-edge online science simulations as kids in a big city. That's powerful, right? Like it breaks down geographical barriers.
And they actually give a good example of, this playing out. There's a study that they cite where researchers found that using these adaptive learning platforms, specifically in underfunded schools, led to some pretty significant improvements in math scores. And this is especially true for students who are behind. It seems like we're finally at this point where we can see some of the tangible results of this technology,
Yeah, but we also have to be careful, right? Like it's exciting, this idea of using technology to kind of close the gap. But the article makes a really good point. Just throwing money at the problem isn't going to magically fix things. Right. Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish. It's the same thing here. You give a school all the computers and tablets, but are they going to know how to use them? If they don't have the training, the support, it's not really getting at the root of the problem, is it?
And they really dig into that. The article talks about how we could end up in this situation where we're dependent on technology and we haven't dealt with the actual causes of these inequalities in education.
Yeah.
You think about it, right? Teacher shortages, not enough money for basic stuff, textbooks, even just repairing buildings. These are big problems. And technology can only do so much.
And this is where it gets even trickier. They bring up this concern that all this new tech could actually make the gap between the haves and the have-nots even wider, which is, the opposite of what we want. We have to make sure that all of this investment, that it's reaching every student.
And that's where, people come back into the picture. The article talks a lot about how important teacher training is. Teachers need to know how to use these tools. They need to be comfortable with them. Otherwise, it's just, handing someone a tablet and being like, okay, be digital now. They need support.
Yeah, and not just like one training session, right? Ongoing professional development, that's key. And it made me think, too, like we need to be checking in, Assessment, evaluation, what's working, what's not. Because every school is different. Every classroom, every student.
Totally. And they had a good example of that in the article. I think it was a school district in California. They did this huge EdTech rollout, but no one had really trained the teachers on the software. So they kind of had to take a step back, invest in some serious professional development, rethink the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which I think just shows you have to be flexible, right? Yeah. You have to be ready to adapt.
Totally. At the end of the day, technology, it should be a tool. It should give people more control, not just be a quick fix, a Band-Aid. If we're going to do this, it has to be thoughtful, it has to be fair, and it has to actually help students.
It really is about how we use it. It's not just, about the technology itself. Are we trying to use it to cover up bigger issues? Or are we actually trying to change things?
Yeah.
You know, make education better for everyone.
Yeah, it feels like a turning point, you know? We have this huge opportunity to make education more fair, more accessible, but it's not going to be easy.
But at least people are talking about it, which is a good sign, right? The fact that there's all this attention on EdTech, all this money, it makes me think that people are starting to get it, you know? Like they
Right.
see that things haven't been equal for a long time and they're ready to do something about it.
Exactly. That's what I like about, really going deep on this stuff. It's not just about reading an article, it's about starting a conversation, right? I mean, this is important. It doesn't matter if you're a teacher, a parent, a student, whatever. How we educate kids, it affects everyone.
It does. And the article, it doesn't end on a totally negative note.
Hmm.
It actually says that if we go about this the right way, if we really think about how we're using this technology, and if we watch out for all those potential problems that we just talked about,
Mm.
then EdTech really can be a good thing. It can really help.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot, right? EdTech, it can help bridge the gap, but it also comes with its own set of challenges. There's no magic solution here. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. We talked about the potential, we talked about the possible downsides, we talked about how important it is to plan this out really carefully. But the question, the big question, is how do we make sure that all of this reaches everyone? How do we make sure that every student, no matter who they are or where they come from, how do we make sure that they benefit from EdTech? It's a big question, but it's an important one. And even more than that, it's one that we need to do something about. That's it for us. Thanks for listening.